What's up guys, HCZ here, welcome back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck of the Day. Today we are profiling another one of the decks from Duels from the Deep, and today we're taking a look at Marincess. Now, this deck always felt like it was missing something, but with the release of the new support, with the inclusion of a couple more extenders, a way to search its own trap card, and also a boss monster that can protect Battle Ocean, the deck finally feels complete, and it's actually a pretty good deck that, if you're a fan of a deck like Adignister, then this deck works very similar. The win condition is the same. It has a lot of niche things going just for itself, which makes it very unique compared to any other deck, even like a deck like Adignister, which shares the same win con. So yeah, today we're going to take a look at the build, and this is not a budget version of the deck. If you're looking for a budget version, then this is not the profile for you, because I am including an engine in the deck that works perfectly for the deck, but it's very costly. So now, before we begin with the video, if you enjoy the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming content, and now let's get to the deck profile. So let's start with the Marincess monsters. First, we have 3 copies of Marincess Blue Tongue. Now, this is the normal starter of the deck. When you summoned, you send a Marincess from your deck to the graveyard, and if it's sent to the grave as link material for a water monster, you excavate the top 3 cards, you add a Marincess card, and then you shuffle the rest into the deck. So this card is the one that you want to be normal summoning the most, but the thing is, we do play an engine in the deck that kinda contradicts with the normal summon of this card, but it doesn't matter too much because the deck does have a lot of extenders that it can even go to its place even without the normal summon effect of this card, so it doesn't matter too much if you don't resolve it. And the thing is, if you just normal summon it and you don't use its effect because you can't, and then you just link it away and then you summon it with another way, then you will be able to use its effect to get the mill and the Foolish Burial effect. We play 3 copies of Marincess Seahorse. Now, this is the card that special summons itself from the hand to a link zone that a Marincess points to, and when it's in the grave, you can banish it to special summon a water monster from your hand to a Marincess link monster that it points to. This is the usual extender of the deck that you're going to be sending off your Blue Tongue, then you're going to be recycling with your Blue Slug, and then you get to the rest of the monsters this way. Now, let's get into some of the new cards. First, we have 3 copies of Marincess Spring Girl. Now, this is the card that you want to be maxing out because it's level 4. The deck does have a lot of extenders, but being level 4 means that you can go into a Bahamut Shark line, you can go into Totally Awesome to basically give you another interruption, and the thing is, your Bahamut Shark is going to be useful after you use its effect because it's a water monster, so you can link it away for a Coral Anemone and then go into something like the Coral Triangle to search the trap and then go for the link 4. So this is why this is the extender that we play 3 of from the new cards. We play 2 copies of Marincess Sleepy Maiden. Now, this is another extender in the deck, but the problem with this card is that it's level 5. So what this card does is you can target a Marincess card you control, you special summon this card, and then the targeted card cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, and you can banish this from the grave to target a Marincess link monster you control, and you equip one from the grave, Marincess link from the grave to it, so you can get another monster equipped to it and not just the 3 from the Battle Ocean. But now, like I said, this is level 5 monster, so unlike Spring Girl, which you do need to banish a monster from the grave to summon, but that's not big of a problem in this deck because you do get to put a lot of monsters in the grave very quickly. This card is easier to summon than Spring Girl, but it's level 5, so it doesn't help you go into anything other than link monsters, which is why we don't play 3 copies of that. And we also play 2 copies of Marincess Mandarin. Now, this is another one that is a level 1, that it doesn't help you go into anything other than links, but it's a monster that can be also summoned from the grave, so it's a free discard for Cyanide Mining. So if you control 2 or more Marincess monsters, you can summon this card to a Marincess monster to a point that it points to, and it basically is banished when it leaves the field. But you can use this effect from your hand or graveyard, so even if this card goes to the grave, you can get it back, and this is why when you already have the Seahorse in your hand and you're summoning your Blue Tongue, you can send this card to the grave to get another extender this way. Now, let's get to the more expensive part of the deck. We have 3 copies of Water Enchanters of the Temple. Yes, I know, one other deck that plays the Adventure deck, but the thing is, the Adventure engine in this particular deck is so good. It has a lot more synergy than in any other deck you've seen the Adventure package in. So first of all, Water Enchantress is a free discard for Cyanide Mining, so you can discard her, get your search, and then you do your Adventure things because you can banish the Water Enchantress from the grave as well. But also, this card is a water monster that can special summon itself from the hand when you have the Adventure token. So if you open multiple copies of this card, or if you open this card with Rite of Aramazir, in most other builds, it would not do anything. It would just be an extender that you could use from the hand to go for maybe like a generic link play like Hulk or something like that. But in this particular deck, being a water monster means that you can go into cards like Coral Anemone or Coral Triangle to be able to get to more extended plays and then go into the link 4 this way. So this card, the more copies you open, the more extenders you have, because you can sometimes even normal summon it, then special summon another one, and go into into Coral Anemone this way. So yeah, this card just does so much for the deck. It gives it a way to play around a card like Nibiru, which the deck could not really do unless it had the specific extenders in the hand in order to go into Bahamut Shark before you extend it, but summoning the Griffon Rider means that you can play around any hand trap along with Nibiru. It also gives it another way to protect Battle Ocean, because the unaffected part of the deck comes from the field spell. It doesn't come from the monster specifically. So if your opponent has backer removal to deal with Battle Ocean and you were not able to get the new monster on the field, the new Link 4 that can negate spells and traps during your opponent's turn, then this means that you were going to lose the unaffected effect of the Crystal Heart that provides with Battle Ocean. So yeah, this card, on top of giving you protection going first, it gives you removal going second, even against cards like Mystic Mine with Dracoback, which this deck struggles a lot against Mystic Mine unless you're maining backer removal. So yeah, this card just gives so much to the deck, and I highly recommend that if you can afford this engine and you want to play this deck at the most powerful level that you can, then I highly recommend playing these cards in the deck. We play one copy of Wandering Griffon Rider. Of course, it's the only monster you need when you're playing this as an engine. We are not playing anything like Illegal Knight. It doesn't offer anything to the deck unless you're trying to commit a lot more to the adventure packets, but this is just the adventure engine at the minimum bear that you can play in deck. Now for the hand traps, we play 3 copies of Ash Blossom. She's the most generic hand trap. If you're playing any hand trap in any deck, she's the top priority, and then the next ones that you should be looking for to play in your deck are the 3 copies of Effect Veiler, mainly because these are the ones that are going to be dead less often depending on the matchup you're playing, and 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence because of the same reason. And if you can main deck these 9 hand traps and you still want to play even more, then you can think about playing cards like Diddy Crow or Nibiru in your main deck. But if you don't play these 9 hand traps and you're thinking of other ones, then I highly recommend playing these 9 first, and then you can think if you can fit in more hand traps, because these are the ones that are going to be less dead than the most games. Now, if you know that you're playing in a format where there are a lot of combo decks, then of course maining Nibiru would take priority, or if you're playing against a format that has a lot of branded decks, then yes, maybe maining Diddy Crow would be better than playing Effect Veiler. But if you don't know what you're playing against, then these 9 hand traps are the ones you should be looking for to play in your main deck. For the spell cards, we have 2 copies of Marincess Dive. Now, this is basically a monster reborn for Marincess, that it becomes an emergency teleport if you have Battle Ocean in your field zone. So this is a spell card, so you can search this with Sea Angel, but the thing is, it's a once per turn card, so you don't really need to play 3 copies of this card, because it could be tricky, because if you open 2 copies of Seahorse, you can normal summon the one and then special summon the other one. So not being a monster means that maxing it out can lead into some brick hands, and you're going to be searching Battle Ocean with Sea Angel 99% of the time, but in case you open your Battle Ocean, you now have another target to search with your Sea Angel, so you don't basically waste a free search. So yeah, this card can be decent. It's not max worthy, but it's a really good card nonetheless. We play 1 copy of Marincess Battle Ocean. This is the card that basically boosts your monsters by equipping other Link monsters you have in the graveyard onto them, and then when you have your Crystal Heart as material for any Link monster, it becomes unaffected. And in this format, unaffected boss monsters, we all know how powerful they are. The Arrival Cybers is a monster that a lot of decks now are trying to find ways to beat it, even if they don't have an inherent way to do so, because it's a card that has been seeing a lot more play recently because of the inclusion of Despia in the format. They don't have a way to deal with really big boss monsters that are unaffected, so this is why this deck can follow a similar win condition, but it does rely on discards sticking on the field, which is why Griffon Rider and the new Link 4 help the deck a lot, because unlike the Arrival, in order to deal with an unaffected monster in this deck, all you need to do is activate a backer removal and deal with a field spell, and then the monster is no longer unaffected, but we do have now ways to protect it, so this is why this card is really good. And the reason you only play 1 copy is that even if your opponent deals with it, the deck does have a lot of ways of recycling not only monsters, but spells and traps as well, so you can easily add this card from your graveyard back to your hand and then establish the board again. We play 3 copies of Signed Mining. The inclusion of Water Enchantress makes this card so free in the deck. Usually Signed Mining is probably one of the worst searches that Konami has ever printed, just because it's a neg 1, but when you do have ways to make use of that discard with cards like Mandarin and Water Enchantress, then it doesn't really hinder your plays too much, because the card you'll be discarding is the card you are going to be using later in the turn, so it doesn't matter because you do get your search and you basically don't neg this way. So this is why this card in this particular deck and in other decks that you can make use of the discard like Salamangreat is really, really good. We play 3 copies of Rite of Aramesir. Of course, you need to max this out. As long as this card and Water Enchantress stay at 3, then we're going to be using them. Even if they both go to 2 in the next ban list, I still feel like there will be consistent enough. If they're not at 1, then they're decent. If they both go to 1 at some point, then yes, the engine is not going to be worth it, but for now, this engine is still really, really powerful. We play 1 copy of Fateful Adventure to activate with your Rite of Aramesir and then get your searches. And this deck, even if you have drawn the Griffon Rider, searching multiple copies of your Water Enchantress Enchantress means that you can basically search water extenders that you can use for Coral Anemone. We play one copy of Draco back. This is a too good of a card not to play. Even if this card can sometimes be a brick, it's such a powerful card that you absolutely have to play. Just being able to deal with Mystic Mine is enough of a reason to play this card, but this card can act as a free discard for your Fateful Adventure because it resets the field to equip to the token and can also basically give you a lot of pressure going second. We play one copy of Foolish Burial. This is mainly for Water Enchantress to give you a 7th starter for the adventure packets, but if you already have access to it, again, you can send your Mandarin and get a Marincess extender this way. We play one copy of Call by the Grave because it's an insanely blocking card. And the only trap that we play, aside from Impermanence, is the one copy of Marincess Wave. Now, this card, before the new support, was basically a 2-of or a 3-of because you wanted to either Hard Droid or Excavate it with your blue tank. But now, the deck finally has a way to search the trap cards, so it doesn't need to play more than one, because again, this deck has a lot of ways to recycle spells and traps from the graveyard, so once you get access to this one copy, you can basically keep recycling it with cards like Coral Anemone and Marbled Rock, and this card is basically an imperm that you can activate from your hand, and it also makes your monsters unaffected as well, so even if you haven't been able to establish the lock, because good players against this deck, they are going to hit Sea Angel, so you don't get access to the field spell, so they don't have to deal with an unaffected monster. This card gives you another way to make your monsters unaffected as well. For the extra deck, we play 3 copies of Marincess Blue Slag. Now, you will see a lot of people playing 2 copies of this and Coral Anemone, but the thing is, these 2 cards basically give you the grind game. Being able to recycle a monster from the grave to your hand and special summon another one from the graveyard means that you will have plays even during the grind game, and sometimes this deck might have problems dealing with a lot of monsters, and Access Code, unfortunately, is not a really big solution in the deck because you only have water monsters to banish with Access Code, so you're basically destroying only one card, so this is why I'm not playing Access Code in the extra deck, which you might seem absurd, but I don't really feel like Access Code gives the deck too much because the attack points is not something the deck lacks. It basically has a lot of big link 4s as well, and being able to pop one card, the adventure packets deals with that part as well, so Access Code becomes very, very redundant. So yeah, I'm maxing out on this card and Coral Anemone, which I'll show later, means that you will be able to grind for a lot more turns than if you were playing just 2 copies, and you also means that you will be able to recycle other cards back into the deck, because if you're playing 2 and 2, sometimes you're forced to recycle themselves, but if you're playing 3 copies of each, then you can get other cards to your hand like extenders or the spells and traps, so you can basically have more options. We play 2 copies of Sea Angel. You need to play 2 copies of this card because not only do you have one more target to search now with Dive, but you also need to make sure that you get access to the card as fast as possible, so if your first one gets negated, then you need to summon the other one during the next turn to try to get it as well, because then if you're only playing one, you would have to go out of your way to recycle that one Sea Angel and then use it again next turn, so you need to play 2 copies of this card. Now for the Link 2s, we play 3 copies of Coral Anemone. Same theory with your Blue Slag. Playing 3 copies of a card that basically gives you another monster from the grave to go into a bigger Link monster means that you will be able to grind for more time, because you're going to be using this the first time to go into the one Link 4, then maybe the second time to go into the second Link 4, and then you can go into your Marbled Rock so you can get another monster on the field that can basically try to push for a game. And with Battle Ocean, even the smallest Link monsters in the deck can become really, really big, so you don't really care. As long as you have one Link monster in the extra deck, you can get some damage on the board. We play 1 copy of Marincess Crystal Heart. This is the card that will give you the unaffected part of the deck once you have Battle Ocean on the field. The thing is, you want to be summoning your Coral Anemone, then get an effect monster from the graveyard with her, then extend one more, and then go into this, and then go into the Link 4 by using this card as material to basically get the unaffected effect. We have 1 copy of Coral Triangle. This is one of the new cards that we got in Duels from the Deep, and it's the card that basically solves the issue of the deck that it did not have searchable removal. But now, searchable disruption. But now, with this card, basically you can search Marincess Wave, so you can have a really good card that does not only imperms your opponent, it makes your monsters unaffected, and you can also recycle it every single turn. So yeah, this card is really, really good. Play 1 copy of Marbled Rock. This is a Link monster that you're going to be summoning only if you go into a super grindy game and you need to keep recycling cards from the grave every single turn. And with this card, when you loop it with your wave and becomes unaffected by Battle Ocean, can be really tough to deal with. But for the early game, you do have better monsters to go into, and those being the Link 4. And the first one is also a new card, which is the 1 copy of Aqua Argonaut. This card helps the deck so much because it's a monster that can protect Battle Ocean. Before, when you were summoning your Bubble Reef or something like that, your opponent could just Feather Duster you or Twin Twisters your Battle Ocean, and you were basically losing all the unaffected benefits of the deck. But this card, during your opponent's turn, you can basically negate a spell or trap or effect, so you can protect your Battle Ocean from cards like Twisters, Feather Duster, and all that stuff. And it also has an effect that your opponent has to attack her, so you can basically get any other monster you want on the field without fear of losing them, because this card is going to be huge because of the equips it's going to have with Battle Ocean, so your opponent will not be able to run over anything on your field. And we play one copy of Marincess Great Babbler Reef. Now, this is a link 4 that it's kind of risky to summon because you're susceptible to back removal. I will be summoning this card only if I have established the Griffon Rider lock, so your opponent will not be able to negate your unaffected effect very easily. And you can see this card basically like the Heat Soul of the deck. It's a card that can keep drawing you more cards. So what this card does is that during each standby phase, you can banish a water monster from your graveyard or field to draw a card. And each time a monster is banished, it will gain 600 until the end of the turn, and you can send a water monster from your hand to the grave to special summon one of your banished Marincess monsters. So this card pretty much is the Heat Soul of Marincess. You basically keep drawing more cards if you try to dig for more hand traps, and it also becomes much bigger than Argonaut because it has an effect to boost itself as well to keep getting more attack points. So your opponent, if they can run over maybe Argonaut, maybe they won't be able to run over this card because it's going to be even bigger than Argonaut. So yeah, this card, if you can establish Griffon Rider, it's a better link 4 to summon than Argonaut. Otherwise, maybe Argonaut is the way to go to make sure that you have a spell and trap negate to negate any back removal that tries to destroy Battle Ocean. And the only Xyz monsters we play in the deck is the one copy of Bahamut Shark, because there are some lines with cards like Spring Girl and your blue tank that are level 4 in order to be able to go into this card, which will get you into the one copy of Totally Awesome to get another layer of interruption, and then you can link away your Bahamut Shark into your Coral Anemone, get another monster back from the grave, and go into your link 3s and 4s this way. So this is why these two cards give you another way to basically get interruptions while also extend into more monsters. So yep, that's the deck, guys. Marincess are finally complete, and I feel like this format is the way to go for Marincess. If Adignister can win because of an unaffected monster, then this deck can do what Adignister does, but much more, because it can use cards like the Adventure Package, which we all know how broken it is, and it does have ways to make more monsters to be able to go into push for game, and also use broken cards like Totally Awesome as well. So yep, that's the deck, guys. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming content, and we'll see you next time.